to allow the cyano groups to cyclize. And then after a high temperature pyrolysis under inert atmosphere, a graphitic honeycomb structure is formed, which allows for carbon fiber that is almost exclusively of carbon. It is this honeycomb structure that accounts for the exceptional mechanical properties of carbon fiber. And down in the nanoscale world, carbon nanotubes are a perfect resemblance of this honeycomb structure found in ideal carbon fibers. Carbon nanotubes contains of sp2 hybridized carbons fused in cylindrical shapes. These cylinders can consist of one cylinder or multiple walls. The diameter range from several to tens of nanometers, with the length up to several millimeters. With this unique structure, we would expect it to have very high properties. It exhibits high mechanical strength and stiffness exceeding any material in the world, and also high thermal and electrical conductivity, as well as good thermal stability. So therefore, carbon nanotubes are very promising building blocks for the next generation of high-performance carbon fibers. But the question is, can we make macroscopic materials out of carbon nanotubes to take advantage of their properties? Studies have been made on carbon nanotube composites in polymeric, ceramic, and metallic matrices. But the loading percentage of carbon nanotube fillers in this matrix have been limited by strong aggregation of carbon nanotubes due to van der Waals forces between them. So the major issues in this field reside in dispersion of carbon nanotubes in the matrix, assessment of the dispersion, as well as the control of alignments. One effective route to improve the miscibility of the nanotubes with the matrix is through chemical modifications, including the following routes. Please be noted that the oxidation will create carboxylic acid groups that are versatile for further modifications. However, these harsh conditions could potentially cleave the nanotubes, and it creates some additional defects. Therefore, the other addition-based chemistries are more favorable these days. Apart from making nanotubes into composites, people have also studied carbon nanotube assemblies in the form of fibers, tapes, and mats. They consist of high or almost pure content of carbon nanotubes. As illustrated in this image, a carbon nanotube fiber consists of carbon nanotubes aligned to one another parallel to the axis of the fiber. And it looks like this under microscope. It can be spun from several strategies, including solution spinning, dry spinning from carbon nanotube vertical forest on the substrate, and direct spinning from the furnace that produces the nanotubes. This picture shows an example of carbon nanotube fabricated from vertical forest at UT Dallas. It's like making of traditional silk fibers or cotton fibers from cocoons. But the sad story is it is not as strong as we expect it to be. In fact, the stiffness and strength of carbon nanotube fibers today are only a fraction of their theoretical value, and it is also barely comparable to the currently commercially available carbon fiber. The fact that carbon nanotube fiber fractures at much lower strength than the individual carbon nanotubes can bear indicates that the failure mechanism is the facile sliding of the tubes past one another instead of fracture of individual carbon nanotubes. It makes sense because the main forces that are holding the nanotubes together into a fiber are friction forces and van der Waals interaction, which are not strong enough to provide the shear strength required for effective load transfer from the fiber to individual tubes. Several post-treatments have been applied to improve the mechanical properties of carbon nanotube fibers. Solvent densification packs the fiber more densely, and due to the capillary effect during the solvent evaporation, Polymer impregnation fills in the void between the nanotubes in the fiber, and that enhances contact area, thus increases the friction force. Our interest resides in cross-linking, which creates additional covalent bonds that are much stronger than van der Waals interaction. The cross-linking of carbon nanotube fibers reported in the literature mainly, there are mainly two strategies. Reinforcement of carbon nanotube network by interlocking of nanotubes using a multifunctional crosslinker. In this strategy, please be noted that these multifunctional crosslinkers do not form covalent bonds with the nanotubes, but they crosslink with themselves. Other strategies include multi-step chemical modification, in which the nanotubes are first functionalized with one moiety, and then this moiety will react with multifunctional crosslinker to establish the covalent bonds. So different from these two types of strategies, we propose a strategy that simultaneously covalently functionalize the carbon nanotube wall as well as form cross-linkings between them in bulk solid state. So the chemistry of our proposed strategy is based on benzocyclobutene molecule. This molecule, upon heating, opens up the four-membered ring to form a diene intermediate, and this intermediate readily reacts with sp2 bonds on the walls of nanotube to form covalent bonds through Diels-Alder cycloaddition. And the advantage of this reaction is that it forms statistical distribution of functionalizations on the walls of nanotubes and does not create additional defects as oxidation does. Also, it does not require catalysts, and it does not release any small molecules during the reaction, like water, carboxylic acid, or CO2, whatever. Benzocyclobutenes are also capable of other reactions, such as BCB-BCB coupling, which means the two BCBs cyclize to form a cyclooctadiene structure. And since BCB can open up the ring and form a diene structure upon heating, it acts similar to a 1,3 diene monomer that are polymerizable. So it can also polymerize. Based on that chemistry, we have designed two types of crosslinkers. One is a polymer with benzocyclobutene pendant groups. In this crosslinker, we are looking for attachment of BCB groups on the same chain of polymer onto different nanotubes. In this way, the covalent crosslinks have been established. On the other hand, for the bi-crosslinkers, it's a different story. Since the size is very small, it's difficult for the BCBs on the same molecule to bind onto two different nanotubes. But as we have mentioned in the earlier slide, BCBs can also react with themselves. So by using this bi-crosslinker, a crosslinker of any size can be generated in situ during the crosslinking reaction. The design process begins with infiltration of crosslinker at various concentrations. Then the solvent is evaporated, leaving only the crosslinker embedded in the nanotube fiber structure. And this is then heated to induce the thermal crosslinking in bulk. This is the overall idea of our strategy. And to prove this idea, we have tested two types of samples. Multi-wall nanotube powders are easier to handle in many characterizations. So we did this cross-linking with powder to look for covalent functionalization and proof of cross-linkings. Also, we used the same cross-linker on the fibers to look for the effect of cross-linking on microstructure as well as the mechanical properties of the fiber. So here's how I prepared my multiple nanotube powder sample. First of all, the nanotubes are mixed with a very high concentrated solution of crosslinker. I did this to try to enlarge the effect and enlarge the signals in the characterizations. Then the solvent is evaporated and the sample was heated at 250 degrees C in nitrogen for a long time. Finally, the sample is rinsed with copious amount of THF and toluene. A control sample has been prepared in a similar fashion, just with no heating. And this sample was made in order to show that the final washing is effective and not a huge amount of polymer is still remaining in the sample after the washing step. We have performed thermogravimetric analysis for the pristine, control, and cross-linked multiple nanotube powder samples. These samples have been heated to 1000 degrees C at 10 C per minute. Comparing the difference between the pristine sample and the control sample, which is the black curve and the red curve, we can see the amount of physiabsorption of crosslinker after washing. On the other hand, the difference between the red curve and the blue curve, which is the difference between the crosslink sample and the control sample, gives the amount of actually covalently functionalized crosslinkers on the nanotubes. So this provides an indirect evidence for covalent functionalization. Another important technique that we employed is X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy. It is a powerful technique for surface characterization and provides information on chemical and electronic state of elements on the surface of the material. The overall signal of carbon 1s can be further deconvoluted into peaks of interest, such as sp2 hybridized carbon double bonds, sp3 hybridized carbon-carbon single bonds, and others. In this case, we are mainly looking for the change of sp2 and sp3 peaks before and after heat-induced cross-linking. After deconvolution and integration, normalization of these peaks, we can compare the value of sp2 and sp3 hybridized carbons before and after heating. We'll see that sp2 bonds have been decreased, sp2 carbons have been decreased, while there's an increase in sp3 carbons, indicating that some double bonds on carbon nanotube has been effectively functionalized and covalently converted into sp3 bonds. We have also tried to monitor the reaction in solid state using differential scanning calorimetry. So we have mixed, the mixture of crosslinker and multiple nanotube has been heated until 280 degrees C at a rate of 5 degrees C per minute. And in the first cycle, around 100 degrees C, there is a step transition, and this is the glass transition of the polymer crosslinker. At around 200 degrees C, a very high exothermic signal is observable, which is attributed to the crosslinking of benzocyclobutenes. So in the second cycle, you run for the same sample. Both signals disappeared, which indicates that all BCB functionalities have been reacted. And the fact that the TG also disappeared means that there's no segmental movement since the polymers have been converted to a rigid network. So this also provides another indirect evidence for cross-linking. In order to visualize the crosslinking, we tested the samples under TEM. On the left is the image for pristine multi-wall nanotubes. You can see that long tubes exist in this image with occasional kinks and defects. On the right is the image of a cross-linked nanotube sample. There's homogeneous polymer layer observable on this nanotube walls, which indicates that the functionalization of BCP polymers was homogeneous and doesn't favor like the tube ends or defect sites. Also, there's ladder-like interlinks observable between the nanotubes, indicating that we have found the cross-linking effect that we are looking for. So after we have confirmed the covalent functionalization and the as well as visualized the cross-linking, we have tested the procedure on carbon nanotube fibers in order to see the effect of cross-linking on the structure and mechanical properties on the fibers. Here are the details of sample preparations. First of all, the fibers are infiltrated with a much lower concentration solution of crosslinker because I wanted to keep the content of crosslinker low as compared to the nanotubes in the final product. Then the solvent is evaporated. Finally, this material is heated at 250 degrees C. At the same time, a control sample was generated in a similar way with no heating in order to show the effect of solvent evaporation, and infiltration of this polymer on the structure and properties of the fiber. So the surface structure can be characterized by SEM images. Before cross-linking, the pristine nanotube fibers are loosely packed with a fuzzy surface, and the nanotubes are aligned to a twist angle to the axis of the fiber. After cross-linking, the surface has increased in roughness, and the diameter has shrinked dramatically to only about half the original value. Higher magnification SEM images gives information on the alignment. So the alignment of the nanotubes are they are almost all aligned with slight entanglements in between, and the void spaces are observable in between the nanotubes that agrees with the loosely packed structure in low magnification SEM images. After the cross-linking process, you'll see that the bundle size of carbon nanotube have been increased due to the process, and it has been covered by an almost continuous polymer layer, and polymer particles are also observable. In order to check the internal structure, cross-section has been acquired using focused ion beam milling. Again, it confirms that the void spaces have been reduced and continuous phase has been introduced into the system. After looking at the structure, we tested the mechanical properties of these fibers in collaboration with Dr. Ba's group over at the Material Science Division. First, the fiber samples are glued to the sample mount and cut in here and placed in the facility to test the ultimate strain and maximum force load. Comparing the stress-strain curve of pristine nanotube fibers, control, and the cross-link samples, we'll see that this entire process will improve the strength and stiffness to about 200 by 250%. And about 100% of each improvement is attributed to crosslinking by comparing the crosslinked sample and the control sample. So this confirms that our process is effective in improving the mechanical properties of the nanotube fibers, and we have confirmed that it is not just the solvent densification and polymer impregnation that improve the strength and stiffness. In addition to the above results, we have also studied the effect of other factors in the process. For example, the polymer content. As polymer content increases, the strength of the final fiber tends to decrease, but the modulus stays about the same. So we wanted to use a low polymer content in the process. Also, we have studied the chemical structure of the crosslinker, how it can affect the final properties of carbon nanotube fibers. The initial results show that benzocyclobutene homopolymer does not yield high improvements in the fibers. So we attribute this phenomenon to the self-crosslinking of benzocyclobutene on the same chain to form cross-linked polymer nanoparticles, which perform as defects in the resultant fiber and lowers the mechanical properties. So in order to solve this problem, we have introduced non-reactive spacers, which are styrene units on the polymer chain, to lower the rate of self-cyclization. So we have studied the effect of styrene content in the polymer on the strength of finally cross-linked carbon nanotube yarn. We have found that the 80 molar percentage of styrene yields the best results, which means about 4 styrene units to 1 BCB unit, which is pretty surprising since there are not a lot of BCBs existent in the crosslinker. So for ongoing and future work, we have synthesized a BCB bi-crosslinker, which the structure has been confirmed by NMR. And in the future, we are going to employ this crosslinker into carbon nanotube fibers and look for its effect on the mechanical properties. The advantage of the bi-crosslinker over polymer crosslinker is that due to the small size, the bi-crosslinkers are more easily infiltrated into the inner structure of nanotube yarns. And as I mentioned before, the BCB cyclization and in situ polymerization allows flexible size of crosslinking. In addition to this, more importantly, the conjugate structure of this crosslinker shows a high potential in enhancing the electric properties of the carbon nanotube material in addition to enhancement in mechanical properties. So in summary, we have designed a cross-linking process to improve the mechanical properties of carbon nanotube fibers. And we have confirmed the covalent functionalization and cross-links of carbon nanotube fibers using these polymers. We have significantly improved the tensile strength of nanotube fibers by 230% using the process, and the stiffness by 250%. And with that, I would like to thank Dr. Mays and Dr. Kong for their support and guidance, advice in the research. All my committee members, the collaborators, and everybody in the group. Thank you.
question. So I understand your diuretic will not, deals all the crossing.
Yes.
Do you have any direct proof of, or can you say how much cross-linking happens between the cyclobutane benzene rings and how much actually attacks the carbon nanotube? Do you have just a rough feel? I know I know there's extensive polymerization, but how much actually covalently binds to the nanotube?
I think the XPS results will give us a better idea on this issue.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. So these are normalized area values of the peaks, and from the decrease of sp2 carbons from 96 to 87, an increase of sp3 carbons from 0.6 to 4.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
So the only time your sp2 carbons change is when you attack the carbon.
Yeah.
Because okay, well, that makes sense to me.
Sorry, I didn't make it clear earlier.
No, now it makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you to the team.